Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of True Crime All the Time. This is an EMASH digital production. I'm your host, Mike Ferguson, and always I've got my partner in crime, Mike Gibson, with me today. Gibby, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
That's going good. You know, this is a very special episode. As you'll notice, I did not say an episode number for this one like I usually do. And that's because we've been talking about something from the very beginning of the show when we first started, and that is doing a listener hometown episode.
Right.
And so because of that, we have a very special guest on Skype with us for this episode. It's a big fan, listener Jorden from Texas is on the line. And she brought us a case, and she's going to be our very first hometown listener episode. So, Jorden, say hi to everyone.
Hello, I'm so excited.
She's excited, and we're excited to do it. I mean, we've been talking about it for probably a month, maybe.
Yeah, about 6 weeks.
Yeah. So Jorden, you've been a fan of the show from very early on. You were probably one of the first to reach out to us on social media.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, part of that first group, part of that first wave.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
And, you know, I know, Gibby, we keep saying this, but it's absolutely amazing how quickly this podcast has taken off.
Right.
And the reason why it's taken off is because of people like Jorden.
Absolutely it is.
Right? I mean, if you look at her activity on Twitter, you know, she's helping to bring in new fans all the time. And that's one of the main reasons why, you know, we're shooting up the charts the way that we are. So, and now we want to take a couple of new steps, right? So the first one is this listener hometown episode, which we're doing right now.
Right.
And as we announced last Friday, our new spinoff podcast is going to be called True Crime All the Time Unsolved. And that's going to debut this Sunday. So we're excited about that. Jorden, please tell me you'll listen to that.
Of course.
So, you know, you're probably not aware of this because at the time we're taping this, the announcement is being made on the episode that comes out tonight because we taped so far in advance.
Right.
So this is the first you're hearing of it, I assume.
I think you told me a couple days ago.
Oh, did I? I let her in. I may have given her a little insider information.
She is a good fan, and we do correspond back and forth a lot with Jorden.
We have been talking a lot because we've been working on this episode. So, Jorden, you gave us this case a while back to research, and you actually gave us a couple to choose from. And we went with this one to make our first listener episode. You know, the great thing about this is I've got some commitments from a few other people as well that I've talked to. So we're hoping to make this a regular thing. I don't know if it'll be once a month, once a week. Obviously, it depends on how many people are willing to do it. And who knows, you may even like it so much you'll want to do another one about some of the other cases that you talked about.
Yeah, I love it.
Now, the one thing I want to talk about before we get into any details is the fact that this case is very, very recent.
Yes.
Much more so than any of the other cases that we've covered on our regular Sunday episodes.
Yeah.
Right?
It was just last spring.
Yeah. I mean, this is... It's a
very fresh
in true crime time. I don't know if that's the way to say it, but you know, normally we're dealing with cases that happened years ago where the details have been flushed out. The case has made its way through the judicial system, and everything's kind of known, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one's a little different. I think, we're going to talk about some things that just happened in September. So unlike most of our other cases, this thing's not even close to being finalized in the court system at all.
No. Not close.
Now, we do have a lot of facts that we're going to go through, but I want to make a disclaimer up front that everything is alleged at this point. I don't want to have to say alleged about every little detail we talk about. So I'm making a blanket disclaimer that says alleged, even though, as we're going to find out, some things have been admitted to. I don't want to give anything away, but I do want to say that because technically until, somebody's proven guilty, everything is alleged.
Right.
So, again, this is new for us. I got Gibby on the other side of the studio, not on the other side of the table. Jordan's on Skype, and basically we're just going to walk through like we would a normal episode. And what we're hoping is that, Jordan can add those details that Gibby and I, because we're usually not familiar with the area where the case occurs, and that's usually when I get called a dumbass for something that I say that, people think I should know. Jordan's going to hopefully fill some of that in for us.
I hope.
So
I'm really going to look bad if I can't from being there.
No, you won't. So right off the bat, you're in the Wichita Falls area.
Yeah, I'm not living there currently, but I'm 2 hours away. But I grew up there, and I lived there last year.
So you're very familiar with this case, and it's one of the reasons why we chose it. And we have to clarify, it's Wichita Falls, Texas.
Yes.
Not Wichita Falls, Kansas.
It's just Wichita, Kansas, and it's Wichita Falls, Texas.
Oh, there is no Wichita Falls, Kansas?
No falls.
See,
I don't think so.
Somebody's going to call me a dumbass if I'm wrong about that. But I like it when people call me that.
That's why I'm not going to make a comment.
Well, if you did make a comment, it'd be something about Illinois.
That's right, Illinois.
All right.
That's bad.
we're joking, but now we got to get serious, right? Because this is a serious case.
Yeah, it's very sad.
It is a sad case. So let's start with the details. On September the 2nd, as we mentioned, this is just last year, 2016, Cody Lott, who was 20 years old, fatally shot 13-year-old Lauren Landavazo. And Jordan, make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, that's how I've heard it.
Okay, because I want to make sure. So he shoots this 13-year-old little girl, Lauren Landavazo, while she's walking home from school. As well, he shoots Lauren's friend, Michaela Smith, who is walking home with her. So we're kind of laying out some of the details, and then we're going to go back and expand on them. This occurred, sometime around 3:00. Like I said, they're walking home from school. It was on Kingston Drive, which everything I read, Jordan said, pretty quiet, suburban, residential area. I looked at some of the news footage, and it appeared to be a pretty nice area.
Yeah, it is. It's nice and quiet.
Yeah. So, after the shooting, the girls are rushed to United Regional Hospital, where unfortunately Lauren passes away from her injuries. Michaela, on the other hand, survives the shooting, and that's kind of the basic foundation for this case. Now, I want to play a police audio that would have had to have been like right when that day, because as you'll hear, they don't know all the details.
Just right before 3:30 p.m., we received a 911 call in reference to check welfare, in reference to a shots fired call in the 5100 block of Kingston, actually in the alleyway. When we arrived on scene, we located one subject that had suffered what we believe right now. Keep in mind, this is all still new. It's still just occurring. We have two individuals that were suffered from apparent gunshot wounds. I do not know the extent. I do not know the condition. I do not know names. I do not know ages. I do not know anything about the victim. They have both been transported to the hospital by AMR, and right now what we have is the area taped off. We have detectives on scene en route to the scene, as well as ID, and right now we're just trying to process it, speak to witnesses, and get as much information as we can.
Did you say both victims were female?
From what I was told, right now both victims are female.
Suspect information?
Suspect information, the only thing that we have at this point is possible suspect driving a black SUV, black truck type vehicle, white male, shaggy brown hair. That's about all we have right now. So,
you can hear there, this had to have been very soon after the incident, because they had very few details. They were able to say that both of the victims were female. They were able to say that the perpetrator was seen driving away in a black SUV or truck, and that he had, what did he say, Gibby? Curly brown hair.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much, right? So
Right.
This is very, very early on. Jorden, I don't know how much you remember. Was this big story day one, or did it kind of come out over a few days or even a week?
It was big like the second it happened, because Wichita Falls is about 100,000 people. It's a small city, and there are 3 big high schools there, so it's a tight-knit community, and a lot of people know each other, and especially through Facebook, if something happens, it's like everybody in the town knows. So it was immediate. Definitely.
That's what I kind of figured. So if this happened at 3:00, right, school's letting out, I assume this made the 5:00 or 6:00 news.
Yeah.
Was there any lockdowns at that time? School's out. So
School's
maybe
out.
not.
So probably
Yeah,
not.
school is out. No, I didn't hear of anything like that. And it was Friday, so.
Oh, that's good information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Friday.
So, we know who did it, right? We said that, Cody Lott. We said that up front, even though at this point the police don't know. So what they do is they set up a perimeter around this apartment complex called Fountain Gate. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, Jorden, or not.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently there was they received a call about a suspicious person or something around 2:00, and that's when they set up this perimeter.
Well, I think I read the same thing you did, and I got confused. When I read that, I thought they were talking about Friday, but I'm pretty sure during that and the perimeter, that's when they were about to catch him on Sunday.
Yes.
I don't mean to give anything away, but yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because like you said, this happened on the 2nd, this perimeter, and I should have made it more clear, happened on the 4th.
Yeah.
So that would have been, you're right, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But in setting up this perimeter, they locate Cody Lott after receiving this tip that we talked about. And apparently he was trying to leave the scene, and they take him into custody in a shopping center They said it was located on Southwest Parkway.
Yeah, at the apartment, they found out that that's who they were looking for. They set up the perimeter there, and they waited. I think they waited a pretty good part of the day, and they couldn't. He never came back. And then they knew what kind of car they were looking for, a goldish Tahoe. I know it said black in the beginning, but it was like a goldish Tahoe. And they ended up getting a call, or a cop spotted the car it's probably about a mile away shopping center, and that's where they got him.
A mile away from this Fountain Gate Apartments?
Yeah, probably a mile or two. But when they went up to him and went to arrest him or talk to him, they made him get out, and then they searched his car, and they found brass knuckles in his car, and that's what they arrested him for, because they weren't for sure if it was him. So they arrested him for having brass knuckles.
Well,
and
I was just going to say, it could be because it sounds like they had a bad description to start with.
Yeah.
Now that description could have changed later on, and I just, I didn't know about it because I just had that one piece of audio, but they clearly were under the impression, at least from the beginning, that they were looking for a black vehicle.
Yeah. And I think later it turned into the goldish, late, early model 2000 GMC SUV, the Tahoe or Yukon, whatever that Jorden just told us about. And then, like Jorden said, they pull them over, they find the brass knuckles in there, and then later through more in-depth search of the vehicle, they do find one spent shell.
In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. Folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save, on average, up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years, and I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT. Yeah, so he's arrested on this brass knuckle charge, whatever charge, concealed deadly weapon, maybe. I don't know what charge they booked him on. They find the spent shell, and I don't know how long it is, but I don't think it's that long that he confesses to the murder or the shootings.
Yeah,
I should say.
I don't think it was very long.
So at this point, he's confessed. He's in the Wichita jail, Wichita Falls County Jail, maybe we'll call it. I had read that they set his bail at $4 million.
Yeah.
Which is,
pretty high,
sizable number,
right?
For a 20-year-old. And I'm assuming that he didn't come from, a wealthy family. Maybe he did. I don't know. I didn't read that.
I don't think so.
But $4 million.
I think that really shows it. People were just, I don't even want to say angry, because that doesn't even come close. It was people hated him before they even knew him. They didn't even know the girls, and everybody in the community hated him.
Just
And
outrage.
Well,
oh yeah,
and I assume a lot of that comes from the fact that, we're dealing with children.
yeah, and it could have been anybody's kids
Right.
because it was where the school is. I wish this was visual, but we have a huge stadium, and it's where all of our big high schools play it. And right in front of it is McNeil Junior High. That's where they went to school. And there's a main road that runs in front of it, and across the main road are those apartments. So he watched them walk home every day. That's how close all this is in that neighborhood. So that's why it was so shocking and so horrible, because it could have been anybody's kids or
Right. Whoever happened to walk that path that day at that time could have been his victim.
yeah.
Now we are going to talk about motive a little bit, and I think it is a little more specific, right?
Yeah.
To one of the girls, but again, I see what you guys are saying, because anytime you've got a situation where a child is killed, people get pissed, and it could be that it's 3 towns over. They don't know this, they don't know these people, but it doesn't matter, because the thought process is, that could be my kid, my child, Jorden, like you said. And the fact that, these 13-year-olds, one was 13. I don't know if they both were or not, but
They both were.
yeah. So these 13-year-old girls, they weren't doing anything to put themselves in a position where, something bad could happen to them. Not that that would make it okay either, but all they were doing is simply the same thing that they did every weekday, which is walking home from school. And as a parent, who you can just sit there and think, okay, my kid walks home from school, and you got a nut job that is sitting at his apartment complex, casing, waiting, and we're going to get into some of that, but I think that's where the fervor and I'm surprised they didn't storm I'm sure people thought about it and drag his ass out of the county jail or whatever jail it is, but that's it, right? When it comes to kids, there's nothing that riles people up more.
Could have been your kid, my kid. Jordan's could be her. I don't know how old your sister is. Or,
right. Violence towards kids is there's nothing that gets people incensed more than that. So,
Right.
So, at this point, they've got him. He had matched the description that the witnesses had given to police. White male, curly brown hair. And even though it wasn't a black pickup, I think they had later probably changed it to this goldish, brownish, whatever it was. But, I think right now we need to talk about the victim. I mean, there was 2 victims. One survived. One passed away. The girl that passed away, her name was, again, Lauren Landavazo. She was a student at McNeil Middle School, Jorden, which, you had said, in Wichita Falls. I did want to read a statement that the superintendent, Michael Kurt, issued just after the shooting. He said, "Today after school, there was a tragic off-campus situation involving 2 girls from McNeil Middle School. I'm saddened to report that one of those girls passed away and the other is in guarded condition. Please know that the district is coordinating efforts to provide grief counselors for students. As soon as we have more information about those resources, we will pass that along to you. As a district, we are saddened by this senseless act of violence, and our thoughts and prayers are with all of those involved." I think that's pretty standard. I mean, from what you would expect to hear. But one word in that stands out to me more than any other, and I think that word is senseless.
Mhm.
I mean, tragic, all that. But this one, I mean, they're all senseless, right? On this show, we cover a lot of crazy things. This one might be up there with the Sandra Cantu as unbelievably senseless.
Yeah. Well, that's always when it involves a kid.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think we're going back to that. I did want to talk a bit about Laura and how she was remembered by the brother of her friend Michaela. Michaela's brother's name was Trevion Elliott, and he just had the most amazing things to say about Lauren, his sister's best friend. He just said, they were always talking, whether it was through text messages or Snapchat. They always walked home together. They walked to school together since they lived in the same neighborhood, and they walked home together as well. You know, it's those kind of things, again, because you're talking about a 13-year-old child. She's walking home with her best friend when this violence breaks out. Also, there was a family friend named Kenya. She described Lauren as a ray of sunshine and that she was just always very, very happy. Again, talking about how much Lauren enjoyed walking home from school with her friends every day. Lauren absolutely loved it, said Kenya. It was only 3 blocks, and they could have been home in less than 5 minutes, but it took them 20 minutes because they were always talking and giggling with friends along the way. And the last thing that she had to say was that Lauren just wanted to cheer people up and make them happy. That was her thing. So again, I mean, obviously nobody's going to come out and say anything bad about a 13-year-old child, but also it's probably because this was a great kid. She was loved by everybody that she had contact with, and she probably was super, super happy. And it just, makes it just even that much more tragic. So, Gibby and Jorden, I think we have to talk a little bit about motive because, like we said, this was a senseless crime. And the motive here, to me, is interesting. And I think it's where we start to get into some of the, I don't know if crazy is the right word, but some of the interesting aspects of this case. Apparently, from what I researched, Lot told the police very early on that he had planned this out. And Jorden, I think you alluded to it already. But he even goes on to say that he had spoken to the devil about and colluded with the devil about what he was going to do. I don't know how much of that came out in the
local media.
In the local media, yeah.
I think that was about it. I don't think he just said, and his dad said that he was, I think he said, if I'm right, he was bipolar and schizophrenic. So I think that, unless I'm thinking of a different thing, but I think that had been happening more and more regularly.
Well, we know he had mental issues, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We've got a clip from Lot's father.
I mean, when you got Lot telling the police that the murder was not senseless, right? Going back to what you said, because it's not senseless because the devil told me to do it.
Yeah, because I planned it with the devil.
Yeah, so he's trying to make it a legit reason. So
yeah,
right there kind of tells you that the boy wasn't stable.
Yeah, so apparently he goes on to tell the police that he knew both of these girls, and the fact that, and I believe it was Lauren. So Jorden, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact that she was in a relationship or had a boyfriend or something had made him angry. You know, he was apparently very upset about the fact that he didn't have a girlfriend, and he must have, you know, he must have seen this Lauren and liked her in some way from the apartment.
Yeah. Talking about like the whole thing kind of breaking down. Like I said, it was a Friday night, and it's North Texas, and Friday is just like in the movies. It's
Football.
a huge football night.
Right.
And and just like I said, the stadium's right there, right behind their school. And so I had heard that the plan was, they had talked about earlier in the day, that they were going to walk home together, like they did a lot, and her boyfriend, Donovan, are we saying last names?
Donovan's good.
Yeah, Donovan's good.
Okay, Donovan. And they were going to walk home, and then he couldn't get a hold of his parents to ask. And so he said, well, I'm just going to go home. I'll ask them, and I'll get money, and I'll meet back up with you. And they were really excited about going to the football game together. And so he was supposed to be there. But, yeah, he had, Lot had seen Lauren and her boyfriend walk home, and Michaela. But it was Lauren that he liked, and he was mad that she got to have a boyfriend and he was single, and he liked her.
All right, so we got to talk about this for a minute, because this is a 20-year-old man. When you're 20 years old, you're no longer a kid. You're not a teenager. You're a man by all definitions, right? Mm-hmm. What in the hell is this guy doing?
Fascinated with a 13-year-old?
Fascinated with a 13-year-old. I understand that he's upset he doesn't have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
But go out and find a 20-year-old girlfriend.
Right. And I know some girls look older than they are, right? You know, I mean, not giving it any justification, but I'm just saying you can run into a girl.
Are you going down a bad path? I can.
No. I'm just saying you know. There's been times that my daughter, you know, put on too much makeup and looks like a whole different person.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
and I'm like,
that.
I don't approve of that, you know? So, you know, maybe he thought she was older. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he knew her age. It just was weird.
You're right.
You know,
either way, it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, clearly he knew that she was probably in middle school. I'm guessing because
she's coming home from the middle school.
Right.
For crying out loud.
I would think he would know that age group would probably be no higher than 14.
Yeah. I don't know what it goes up to.
Yeah.
But, maybe 13.
13 or 14.
Yeah, 13 or
14.
14. Because she was probably topping out, or probably in the higher grade of that middle school. So,
and both of these girls they're gorgeous. They're very pretty. And girls now, I feel like, look so much older than even when I was in junior high.
Well, they do.
They look older, and
they do. And I think that's what Gibby was trying to say. But any hate mail should go to gibbyisadumbass at gmail.com. Do not send that to me. No, I'm just kidding. But it is a fact, right? You know, I think back many, many years ago, because Gibby and I are both a little older, and little girls look like little girls. I mean, high school girls looked so much younger than high school girls do today. You know, that's a testament to my Ulta makeup bill that my kids run up, and Sephora and all this stuff. But, you know, anyway. But either way, the bottom line is, 20-year-old guy, he had to have known, give or take a year or two, how he had to have known this girl was underage. Let's put it that way.
yes,
So he knew he was infatuated with somebody that he shouldn't have been. I think we can all agree on that.
Right.
Yes.
But, you know, it was a part of the motive. I mean, I think he said that. He told police that, you know, he was upset about the fact that she had a boyfriend She liked him. He didn't have a girlfriend. He was mad about that. He confessed that, he had taken I think it was his stepfather's rifle from the family apartment. And Jorden, as you alluded to, he was waiting at the window, waiting for these girls to apparently see them walking down the sidewalk. And who knows how many times he had done this before. Had probably done it many, many times. And as soon as they pass by, that's when he gets in his Tahoe pickup. I'm a little unsure, whatever vehicle he had.
Tahoe or Yukon. Yeah.
Or Yukon. And he drove to them. And that's when he opened fire.
With a AR
22.
rifle.
Well, it's a 22 though.
Okay.
It's an AR style rifle, but it was a 22. Not to make that any less violent than it is, but a normal AR is, 5.56 or 223.
Right.
This was a 22
Smaller caliber.
made to look like an AR style rifle. That's what I got.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into guns because then we're in my other podcast.
But we know a 22 caliber can do a lot of damage too because of the ricochet effects and things like that.
And you're absolutely right. Sometimes a 22 can do more damage because a higher velocity bullet, depending on where it hits, will go through. But a 22 sometimes will, hit something and then, like you said, it'll ricochet and do a lot of damage that way.
So he shoots her initially a few times, right? And then he shoots at her friend Michaela, hits her once, and then comes back and hits, unfortunately, Lauren a few more times, a total of 14.
That's what I read, a total of 14 times.
14 times, which is just unbelievable to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing that makes that terrifying is that, to give you perspective, again, the middle school's here, the apartments are here, the main street goes between them. They're walking down the sidewalk in front of the apartments, and then you turn right into an alley. So they turn right, and I think his apartment was on that alley side. So I think where he would watch them.
Right, and isn't that where it happened, in the alley, right? Did he wait?
But he waited. He knew. I think that he had seen them, like he'd be driving around and he'd see her and then he'd think, oh, she probably does this every day, and then watch. And so he knew her way she went. So he knew when she passed that they still had a pretty big chunk of alley to go. So he goes down, gets in his car, drives around, and parks at the end of the alley and blocks them off. Right. So they're walking straight to him.
So there was nothing. There was nothing they could do.
No, and they had no idea. There's a car there. They're like, okay, I'll just go around it.
Well, and as a 13-year-old walking home from school, I don't say you shouldn't have a care in the world. You should be aware of your surroundings, but what you don't expect is some 20-year-old guy to come after you with a rifle. So
yeah, and he didn't even get out of his car. He just rolled down the window or opened the door, but I know he didn't get out.
Right.
And he just sat there and then drove off.
Yeah. Even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. You know, my wife and I do a lot of shopping online, and we always use Rakuten. Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. We're talking fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Macy's, Nike, Sephora, Dyson, and Lowe's. And that's just to name a few. Pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cashback. Cashback is deposited directly into your PayPal account, or Rakuten can send you a check. You can even maximize your savings by stacking cash back on top of other deals, like store sales and coupons. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It really is a no-brainer. Membership is free, and it's easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cash back really adds up. So what I read was he drives off. He gets rid of the rifle somewhere on a rural road, throws it out or does something.
Yeah. On a field.
But then he later goes back and he gets it
The next day.
and he returns it to his parents' apartment.
Yeah, he took it from
I
his
think he
stepfather.
probably did it, and then he was like, there was a shooting, and my dad's going to wonder where his gun is.
Yeah, or his
So he
stepfather.
probably
I was a little
thought-
confused about that because we have a clip from his dad, but everything I read said he must have been living with his stepdad at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was his stepdad's rifle.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got a news clip here I want to play real quick.
Injuring Michaela Smith as they walked home from school. She joins us now. Danielle, police say Lott told them he was attracted to Lauren.
Lott told investigators he was angry he did not have a girlfriend and that Lauren was with someone else. Lott told detectives he knew she had a boyfriend because he'd seen them walking home from school together. Lott told investigators he was watching for Lauren to walk by that day. He says he went to his parents' apartment at Fountain Gate, grabbed his stepfather's .22 caliber AR-style rifle and waited by a window. He says when he saw Lauren, he drove to the alley near Trinidad Drive and shot her and Michaela. Lott told police he shot Lauren first and then turned the gun on Michaela, shooting at her a couple of times before moving back to Lauren to finish her off. The 20-year-old says he then drove off and later threw the rifle he used in a field. According to the arrest warrant, Lott says he went back to the field to get the gun Saturday and took it back to his parents' apartment at Fountain Gate. Lott's story matches that of victim Michaela Smith. She told police the driver reached into his car and pulled out a gun and then shot her. She said she panicked and ran away. She says she looked back and saw her friend laying on the ground in the road and just kept running as the SUV drove off. While she was being treated at the emergency room, Michaela Smith told police officers what had happened and was able to give them a description of Cody Lott. Michaela says she did not know the driver, but was able to make eye contact with him. Danielle Malagary, News Channel 6.
Some chilling details. Thank you, Danielle. Officials say a preliminary autopsy showed that Lauren was shot 14 times and Michaela had been shot once, but had 3 separate wounds. There were 15 shell casings found by police at that crime scene.
So, yeah, there's a report from Channel 6, and, it kind of backs up a lot of the things that we've been saying. But the one thing I take away from that was the talk about Michaela Smith, which is the girl that was shot but survived. And I think, Gibby, help me. What'd they say? She was shot only once, but had 3 separate injuries or bullet wounds somehow.
That 22, you know.
Right. So that must have been some of the ricochet. But what was amazing about Michaela, if you think about it, she's probably one of the big reasons that they were able to catch Cody Lott, because she's the one that gave them the description of Lott, with a curly, said she didn't know who he was, but she did get a good look at him, and she probably had a big hand in them ultimately being able to capture him. So, Jorden, I mean, I assume this is nightly news for quite a period of time.
Well, for that night and then Saturday night and all day Sunday, and people were, and they were still talking about it for quite a bit, but a lot of people were scared because they didn't know if he had plans to, they had no idea his motive, who it was, or if he was going to go somewhere else.
So for the 2 days afterwards, everybody was definitely, before they got him in custody, people were just panic, freaking out, like not wanting to leave their house.
Yeah.
And now I would have to imagine that, because I don't know that there's much that's happened, because this is so new or so fresh. I assume that, other than like preliminary type trial stuff, there's really probably not much that has gone on since then.
Nope.
So this is another one, Mike, that we may have to update.
Right.
And
I'm sure Jorden will let us know.
Yeah.
So, I know we were still diving into some of his motives and his past a little bit. And, I did find it interesting that he was involved, back in June of 2015 in Baylor County. I don't know, Jorden, how close Baylor County is, or if that's the county you're actually in, but he was threatening to shoot people at his grandmother's house. And he wasn't charged. But, so, there he is in Baylor County, and, the year before.
I assume Baylor is close to Waco, if I had to guess.
I don't know. Where is that?
It's close to us. It's I can't think of what town it's in, but I would say within 30 minutes.
So it's not close to Waco, because isn't Baylor University in Waco? It must be two different
places. I don't know. I should know that.
I definitely know that, because I'm a sports guy. But yeah, continuing on with Lott, again, he's got a Facebook page. He's 20 years old.
Right.
And it's filled with all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, it's bizarre stuff.
He's got references to the Illuminati, which most 20-year-olds don't even know what that is.
Right.
And I guess he was really big into conspiracy theories, and he also had at least one post, maybe more, about mass shooters.
Right. Well, he definitely had, some weird takes on things.
Yeah, it had something to do with mass shooters being controlled by prescription drugs.
Yeah.
And again, that may go back to Jorden, what you were saying, and we are going to play this clip with his father trying to get him some help. But he also had a lot of posts about weed.
Yeah.
He was arrested in 2014 twice for thefts of between $20,000 and $100,000.
Really?
I don't know what the hell you're stealing between $20,000 and $100,000, and why you're still on the street. But
and it was weed related.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
One of them.
Well, on his Facebook, he has a ton of memes and just some random stuff. If you're not his friend, I'm sure it cuts out a lot of stuff you see. But most of the stuff that he actually typed into a status, there were probably 3 or 4 talking about friends of his that had passed away and rest in peace. And it was just bizarre to me and they were years ago, but still. It was weird to me that he seemed caring and his friends had died and that he was.
Well, he was definitely into weed for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the last thing I want to talk about as far as that is, and maybe you can elaborate on this part, because one of the things I read was that early on, I think it was maybe Sunday after he'd been captured, there were a lot of rumors that were going around online that the shooting was maybe somehow racially motivated. Because we didn't mention this in the beginning, but, you know, Lauren is white and Michaela is black, right? So at least there was some mention that on some websites that maybe this gunman was a white supremacist who was upset with Lauren because she was friends with Michaela. But police pretty early on, I think,
They squashed that.
They were trying to squash that. And we all know now, knowing what we know, that that wasn't the case. But I don't know, Jordan, if you had any insight or if you had heard any of that, if that was on, I don't think they would probably be saying that on the media as much as as that would have been maybe on social media. Probably.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Facebook quite a bit, but I saw a ton of stuff. I think it was just a small community trying to make sense of something. So it was just like anything you can imagine, people were saying is what happened. And
well, and that makes a lot of sense, because until the facts actually came out, and the facts don't make sense, right? The real facts don't make sense. So I can imagine people sitting at home on Facebook or calling each other, trying to make sense of something that you really can't, because it just doesn't make any sense. But,
right.
But anyway, the police did come out pretty quick and squash that. So I do want to play a clip from Lot's father, because it does talk about some of the things that we've touched on as far as mental illness and some of that.
Just one day after the man accused of killing a 13-year-old girl and wounding another is arrested, his father is speaking out. Good evening, Tex Home. You're watching News Channel 6 at 10. I'm Ashley Fitzwater. News Channel 6 Danielle Malagary sat down with Cody Lott's dad today. She joins us now, and Danielle, he says this is a nightmare for everybody.
Attempting to hold back tears, Cody's dad says he was shocked when he found out it was his son who confessed to committing Friday's deadly shooting. He tells me he did not want to show his face on camera, but did want to offer his condolences to the families affected.
We saw what happened on TV Friday, and we said, how can that happen in Wichita Falls? How can two little girls be walking home and something like that happens?
Cody's father says the following day he got a phone call he never thought he'd receive. His brother telling him his son was the one who pulled the trigger, taking the life of Lauren Landavazo and injuring Michaela Smith.
It's just a nightmare for everybody, and it's hard on everybody.
He says although Cody had mental health issues, he never would have thought he could take someone's life.
I knew he had mental problems, but I was in the process of trying to get it resolved, and he was on medication. I'm not making excuses for him. We got him on file with Social Security to try to get him some kind of mental health, and to my horror, this is what's happened.
He also told me Cody was in a mental hospital in Houston for about a month. There he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. He recalls Cody as a child and tries to piece together where things went wrong.
Cody was a straight-A student up until he was about 10 years old. The divorce, I don't know if that's what affected him. Something changed.
But says what he cannot change is the fact that 13-year-old Lauren Landavazo is no longer with us.
I feel the pain that family feels. I don't have the words to tell you how sorry I am for you. I don't have the words to tell you how sorry I am. All I've done is pray for the Lord to make me strong and keep me strong, and I pray that family can be strong. I'm not asking them to forgive him. I know people hate him, and I don't blame them. I hate what he did too. Nobody's more disappointed in him than I am. I don't know what to say to him. I can't tell him how disappointed. I hadn't seen him. I can't believe he did it. I can't believe it. I wouldn't know what to say if I saw him. I guess I'll never see him again. I don't know.
Cody's father tells me he does not feel sorry for his son and is not making any excuses for him. Really, he says he's just heartbroken and in disbelief that his child chose to throw his life away like this, and adds he will never understand why Cody made the choices he did, forever changing the lives of so many in this community. Danielle Malagary, News Channel 6.
All right, I don't know about you guys, but that was pretty powerful.
That was, I mean, here's the dad just, man, he trying to make sense of something something terrible his kid's done. And,
obviously he's heartbroken.
Oh, he's heartbroken, apologetic. He's,
you could tell, you could hear the anguish. I mean, that was not put on.
No,
that was real, for different, for the families and for the little girls. And then for him to talk about how, the anguish of having to find out that it was his son that had committed this.
Talking about how he tried to get his son help for his mental issues, talked about how he, they knew that he, had bipolar and he was schizo, talking about,
Jorden had mentioned bipolar.
She did, yeah.
Earlier, and then in this one he said paranoid schizophrenia. So,
and they talk about, and here's a father thinking of, because you think of your kids, no matter how old they are, you always remember them more of the younger stage. So he's going back a time a little bit and saying he was a straight A student up until he was 10, and then we got divorced, and maybe the divorce caused all this. So he's trying to reach out and grasp to any reason on why his son did something horrific.
Right.
Right. And he's never going to find out what that is.
And Gibby, you and I have been talking in recent episodes about guilt. People feeling guilt and just imagine the guilt that, this guy feels for being the father of, this kid that's committed this terrible act. So, Jorden, I didn't know if you had anything on that. I feel for, Lot's father, as bad as the thing was, that the crime that Lot committed, unless his father is some kind of Oscar-winning actor, I truly feel what he was saying was genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't watched that since it first happened a year ago. And so, but I still remember how powerful it was. And I remember forgetting that it wasn't his son that had died, because that's like how much grief he speaks with. And he just is so overtaken. And I guess it's because I don't usually see the murderer's parents speak out. I feel like they stay behind the scenes more. And I guess yeah.
I mean, it was to hear him say, I don't know if I'll ever see my son again. I can't forgive him. I mean, it's all powerful.
Yeah.
So we're learning more and more about him, right? We're learning at a younger age, not too much younger, but he had issues. He was kind of diagnosed with bipolar. He had issues with his weed. He had issues with some theft issues.
Shooting guns at his grandma's house.
Standoffs with the sheriff. But then he also had issues with some ex-girlfriends.
Yes. One big one in particular, and maybe more.
Right. And I think you've got more details on that, or Jorden does. I know you got a nice clip on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had an ex-girlfriend named Haley. Apparently they had about a 2-year relationship, and I'm not sure Jorden when it came out, but after this, obviously, it came out that he was physically abusive to her during the relationship. I mean, we're not talking about. I mean, any physical abuse is bad, so I have to be careful what I say. But we're talking about some crazy stuff here.
Yeah.
Pushing her down the stairs, busting her head on things.
Yeah, on the car dash
Yeah.
and wrapping the seatbelt around her neck, and
So I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember how long it took for that or when that came out time wise. Probably
it
pretty
was pretty
soon.
quick. Yeah, it was pretty quick because they were trying to. I mean, I feel like they were still trying to make sense of it, so they were finding anybody in his past to explain. Did you see this coming? Has he always been like this? Did it just happen? And so, I'm pretty sure they found her pretty quick.
Yeah, and I'll play the clip here in a minute, but apparently at one point she had moved to Colorado to live with her mother, and Lot actually moved with her, but
Yeah.
I guess he was, displaying such bad abusive behavior in front of the family that her mother kicked him out and actually bought him a bus ticket and said, hey, you got to go back to Texas because you can't stay here. So she ultimately moves back to Texas, I guess, for her senior year. But at this point, she's in a new relationship, and Lot is harassing her and threatening her, not only her, but her fiance and her child. And, he was, and apparently they were keeping a trail of this through text messages and stuff. But let's hear her, and then we can talk about it a little more.
The question on everyone's mind as we struggle to process the senseless shootings this weekend of 2 teenage girls is why. You're watching News Channel 6 at 6. I'm Ashley Fitzwater. Chris Horgan has the night off. Authorities say the shooter, Cody Austin Lott, is in custody and confessed to the murder of Lauren Landavazo and the shooting of Michaela Smith. But who is Lott? One person says she knows. News Channel 6 Ava Van Valen spoke with Cody Lott's ex-girlfriend, and Ava, she says that she's been harassed by him for years.
Yes, Ashley. Haley Clayton says she started dating Lott in 2010. She says they dated for 2 years, and throughout the relationship, he physically abused her. She says after their breakup, he started a campaign of harassment that continued up until last Friday morning, the day of the shootings.
I had a seatbelt wrapped around my throat. He pushed me downstairs, busted my head on the dash of his car that he had then, and it was just a really abusive relationship.
Haley Clayton is describing some of the abuse she claims she suffered at the hands of her ex-boyfriend, Cody Austin Lott. She met Lott when they were both students at Archer City High School in 2010. She was a sophomore and says they dated for 2 years.
The entire second year of our relationship, he was really abusive.
In 2012, she moved to Colorado to live with her mother, and Lott moved with her. But she says within a month, he was displaying such abusive behavior in front of her family that her mother bought him a bus ticket back to Texas, and they broke up.
And I stayed up there for a year because I was scared to come back because he kept threatening to kill me then.
She moved back to Texas her senior year in 2013. She says she was in a new relationship with her current fiance and had had a baby. She says that's when the harassment began. She says Lott started threatening her, her child, and her fiance's lives.
He said that he was going to catch us out and about, and he was going to make us wreck our vehicles, and he was going to kill us and torture us.
She says she went to the Archer City Police Department to get a restraining order, but she says they said they couldn't help her. Every few months, she says they would get harassing texts or calls. She had blocked Lott from her phone and Facebook, but he was still able to text her fiance because she says they wanted to keep a paper trail of the threats and harassment. Lott sent this threatening text to Clayton's fiance at 10:22 a.m. Friday, the day of the shootings.
Saying that he wanted to kidnap all three of us and have my fiance and torture my son and I in front of him and make him watch.
She said because of Lott, she's lived in constant fear for not only her life, but that of her fiance and son. She says her heart breaks for the victims and families of the tragic shooting. And sadly, she says she wasn't too surprised when she heard Lott had been arrested.
His entire life, he wanted to hurt people. That was like his life goal was to hurt people because he was sad or mad or whatever.
So that's that's something when your ex-girlfriend says that your life goal is to hurt people. I don't know, Gibby. One thing I took away from that was when he was sending all these threatening texts, the last one that he sends, and it wasn't even to Haley, it was to her fiance. It was sent at 10:22 Friday morning,
Right.
that same day of the shooting. So you got to wonder, what role did this whole thing play in it? Or was it just a side thing? And you can weigh in, Jordan.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll let Jordan weigh in here in a second because, and I think if he could have found the ex and the child and the fiance, I think he would have, used that weapon on them. I think his threat was very real. I think if he would have found them, we would have been talking about other victims. That's
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, well, the guy shot a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have any qualms over, especially with the amount of harassment that, he had made to this ex-girlfriend. I don't think he'd have any qualms about, harming them as well. I just wonder, did it have a role in what he actually did, or was it just a separate thing, right? Was he infatuated with this girl and then at the same time still upset with his ex-girlfriend? So they were kind of separate and apart, and he just happens to send this text on the same day that he commits the murder?
I guess it's what the devil told him.
Yeah, I don't know.
If the devil told him to do this and that, in his head, I tell you, this, schizo and bipolar, it's something we talk about a lot, and I've experienced it, unfortunately, I keep bringing this up, but I've somehow have been connected
to a lot of bad
stuff, right? And there was a coworker that was bipolar, and he actually, worked with him for years, and on all accounts normal, but he was diagnosed bipolar when he didn't take his meds. You saw somebody totally different, and so he eventually, one night came home after being out in the bars with his girlfriend and killed her. Another horrific killing because of the method he used. A framing square. So,
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, and it was related. Most of the talk was because if he would have took his bipolar meds, maybe it would never have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to talk about mental health, right? Because it's such a huge topic, and it is kind of related to most of these cases that we talk about. And Jordan, one question I had was, and I don't know if you remember, but what was the talk there in Oklahoma about guns after this happened? And before you answer, I'll just say, we had an incident up here in Ohio where a crazy person drove their car into a bunch of people at Ohio State. Gibby, you remember that happened a while back. And they didn't have a gun, but when you looked at the comments on the news pages, the first comment was, we've got to do something about guns in this country. Well, it turned out the person didn't have a gun. They tried to run over a bunch of people. So Jordan, I just wonder, how big of an issue was the gun portion of this?
In Texas, you said
Did I say Oklahoma? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's tonight's episode, the one that's coming out tonight.
it's Texas, so I'm definitely not going to say everybody is for guns, but a majority are for guns, and I have no recollection at all of hearing anything about it.
And to be honest, I think because so even if someone had an issue with gun control in that state, the problem with this one was he didn't go get a gun. He took a gun from his stepdad. So even if his stepdad had the gun legally, you know, if you know what I'm saying, by having mental illness, it wouldn't have mattered. If he would have registered, he wouldn't have received it if he was.
But with that, even if he didn't have a gun,
right,
he would have found another way.
Yeah,
that's usually my argument. But I don't want to get into the gun debate because we'll get people too riled up. But I was more of just wondering because up here when stories happen, that's kind of the first thing that people talk about is, you know, we've got to get rid of these guns. And really, you know, what I was more saying was, you know, I think a lot of this, especially this case you've brought to us, Jorden, is a mental health issue case. Mm-hmm. Right. And I know his dad said they were trying to get him help, and I don't know what meds he was on, but obviously he had mental health issues that led him, you know, down this very bad path. So allegedly, right. I made the disclaimer in the very beginning. Right. I mean, the guy confessed, for crying out loud, but technically he's not been convicted. So it's all alleged.
Well, and you know, as people will hear the podcast episode that we released tonight on Alton Nolan, that they will hear on there that even though he confessed, right, the judge wouldn't take the guilty plea.
Right.
And sorry, Jorden, you probably hadn't listened to it yet, but you're good at understanding on why she does that when you listen to the podcast.
And you could have a similar situation here.
Absolutely.
I don't know the differences between Texas and Oklahoma, but you know, they're going to want to make sure that this guy is right in the head before they move forward with this guilty plea to make sure it sticks. I know that's where you're going.
Exactly.
But anyway, you know, I'll tell you what, you know, we got to wrap it up, but Jorden, it's been a lot of fun, and it's great. Yeah, it's great being able to ask you questions, and you brought us a good case. I mean, I shouldn't say it's good because it's the death of a 13-year-old girl, but it is what we talk about, these cases and why people do what they do. So what'd you think?
I loved it.
All right. Well, you can't.
It was fun.
The good news is it's going to be out before you know it.
I know. I'm so excited.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You did awesome.
Thank you.
Yep, you did a great job, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you, Jorden.
All right. So Jorden left us via Skype, and it's just me and you, Gibby. And
that was good to have her on. Get her input, get her knowledge of the area, the geographical area.
Well, it helps because, you know, when I was doing the research, I didn't realize the geography of the school versus the apartment complex versus the alleyway. And you couldn't see it, but she was on video using her hands to
give you like
she was like mapping it out.
Right.
But it did help. Right. So she had a lot of good little morsels that unless you live there, you're just not going to know that stuff. Right. And it doesn't matter how much research we do. We're not going to fly to, Wichita Falls, Texas, and survey the scene, and we're just not going to have all that information. So
right. She was definitely informative.
Yeah. So I like the format. We're going to try a couple, see what people think of it. We got some, like I said, a couple other people that want to do it, and I hope it's something we can roll out every now and then as a supplement.
Yeah, I mean, if the listeners like this, reach out to Mike. You know, if you're interested in doing something like this,
yeah, definitely.
With who that subject matter would be, right?
The one caveat, and I think I've said it before, is it needs to be a case that is not very well known. Like don't email me and say I want to do Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah. Because obviously we're going to cover Dahmer, and
right.
It needs to be a smaller case,
more regional, interesting,
but something that you
feel you could contribute.
Yes, exactly. Gibby's saying all the right things for me. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I'm Mike Ferguson for Gibby. It's true crime all the time. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
At Hotels.com, we know some travelers crave an ocean breeze. Others don't want to deal with sand. And oftentimes, those two people end up together. Compare properties side by side to find yourself poolside, oceanside, and still in a relationship. Find your perfect somewhere with Hotels.com.